And what, getting back to fitting in, as a woman in Saudi, in Qatar, I mean, and you are a feminist, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
You know, I think I know you well enough. You know, a very independent woman, and how, because I'm sure that there were times you felt that you had to sacrifice, at least publicly, you had to sacrifice who you are in order to fit in, and in order not to offend people or insult people as well, you know. Did you feel that, or were you able to navigate that without any sense of loss?
There was some sense of loss. I'm a very physical person.
Right.
I shake hands. I embrace people. I
Women
kiss them.
can't do that, no? Mm-hmm.
No, and for example, there are more conservative Muslims where the men cannot touch any woman whom he might be eligible to marry someday. So he can shake hands with his sister or hug his sister, but he can't even shake hands with his sister-in-law. And even though it's forbidden to marry your wife's sister, if your wife were to die, you could marry your sister-in-law. Therefore, you cannot shake her hand because sometime 20, 30, 50 years in the future, she could become a candidate to be your spouse. And so even though at the time it's absolutely forbidden, because there's this ultimate possibility. So I learned not to assume I could shake a man's hand or put my hand on his shoulder to get his attention if he were my employee. Not to publicly criticize or engage in any conversation that could be misinterpreted as a negative comment or a negative conversation or a criticism, in particular with a male, was very important. And even if the least intelligent person in the room was a man and said something not intelligent, not capable, that we couldn't understand or dissect even, we had to pretend we understood it and agreed with it and supported the idea because of the gender imbalance. That's slowly changing. I left Saudi Arabia in 2018, just as women were given the right to drive cars. And that was an interesting experience because the king made the announcement 6 or 9 months earlier that beginning on June 1st, 2018, that women would be able to drive cars. And everyone was just petrified at what was going to happen at the Department of Motor Vehicles, at the schools where they teach driving, that thousands of women would be descending upon them and they wouldn't be able to handle the masses. Well, it turned out that more than 50% of the women already had driver's license from England or the Emirates or from Qatar. They had all just gone on holiday and gotten their driver's licenses over the last 2, 5, 10, 20 years. And they drove in other countries. They just weren't allowed to have a Saudi license and to drive at home. So the cultural differences were very dramatic. So you had to be very sensitive about humor and sexism, and you had to laugh at sexist jokes that they were accepted at that point in time. But fortunately, women worldwide are standing up for themselves, whether confrontationally or in a more gentle, careful fashion, discussing how the Prophet Muhammad might handle something and that maybe this wouldn't be accepted in our culture and you should rethink your approach. Because you get more flies with honey, as they say, than you do with vinegar.
Yeah, it depends on how
another
you frame
one
it,
of those expressions that doesn't translate.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that's I like that expression very much. It's a very nice way of explaining the idea of framing something in a way that is understandable and non-insulting for the other person. No.
Absolutely.
And how? I mean, did you learn to fully accept? Because I think I have accepted as I got older everything that I didn't like about Ireland, and I have accepted the things that I don't like about Mexico or haven't liked about Mexico in the past. I accept them totally. No. Did you fully accept those values, or were there some that you could just never fully accept? Do you know what I mean? Like you always felt like this. I'm just never going to get that.
I think I learned to accept accept it for what it was, and that those were the circumstances I had chosen to live under, and that while part of our jobs, and that was why the King Abdullah at the time brought us to Saudi Arabia. He was a more liberal king. The current king is still fairly liberal as well, but he was far more liberal than his predecessors. And he brought foreigners to work in Saudi Arabia at the King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, KAUST. Part of the reason for bringing outsiders in was to help quietly, gently change the culture, one person at a time. Not, for instance, we went from a Thursday, Friday weekend to a Friday, Saturday weekend so that the Sabbath would fall on Friday and people could play on Saturday.
Okay.
And the king just announced it overnight.
Mm-hmm.
He said, starting this week, the weekend is now Friday, Saturday. So I'm going to give you all Thursday, Friday, and Saturday off so you can reschedule everything social you had on Thursday to Saturday. You've got 1 week to make it work. And a king can issue those kinds of mandates. But there are other mandates that if you just issued them as king, you could cause a revolution or a mini rebellion within your kingdom. And so the way to change them is in a slow and gentle fashion, and introducing the concept slowly, bringing in foreigners who aren't aggressive, aren't confrontational, who appreciate the differences and learn to live with those differences while introducing alternative ideas for people to think about them, contemplate them.
There's yes, exactly. Though there may be some ideas that people will never get because it's not in the language. We spoke about compromise, which is a word in English. It's an unusual word in the sense that it means to lose, but for the benefit of, you compromise by sacrificing something.
Yes.
For the benefit of both parties, and that particular word, compromise, that idea doesn't exist in Spanish. I mean, there are all sorts of wonderful phrases in Spanish about how to collaborate, but that idea of losing in order to win is not something that exists in Spanish. So in a situation of conflict, it's actually quite difficult sometimes to reach a compromise because the concept doesn't exist, Though there are, what am I getting at? My point is, but there are other phrases, there are other ideas about collaboration in Spanish, which are very nice, and which will allow you to find some kind of a solution. But it's not quite the same thing.
No.
As both sides losing in order to win as one. Yeah.
Yes. It's more negotiating, but it's not seen as giving something up for the good. It's giving something up to win something else.
Yes.
Where when I think of compromise and what I'm willing to sacrifice, as opposed to I must give it up in order to gain something else. There is a significant difference between the two concepts.